Japan nuclear nightmare. A possible breach in the core of a reactor at the stricken Fukushima nuclear plant could mean more serious radioactive contamination, Japanese officials revealed Friday, as the Prime Minister called the country's ongoing fight to stabilize the plant very grave and serious. A very somber Prime Minister sounded a pessimistic note at a briefing hours after nuclear safety officials announced what could be a major setback in the urgent mission to stop the plant from leaking radiation, 2 weeks after a devastating earthquake and tsunami disabled it. This is becoming a rolling disaster, a nuclear nightmare, eerily similar to what happened last year with the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Another long-lasting, man-made disaster. Perhaps it's not a very good idea to put nuclear power plants by the ocean, near earthquake fault zones. The situation at the Fukushima Daiichi power plant is still very grave and serious. We must remain vigilant, the Prime Minister said. We are not in a position where we can be optimistic. We must treat every development with the utmost care. The uncertain situation halted work at the nuclear complex, where dozens of workers have been trying feverishly to stop the overheated plant from leaking dangerous radiation. The plant has leaked some low levels of radiation, but a breach could mean a much larger release of contaminants. Suspicions of a possible breach were raised when 2 workers waded into water 10,000 times more radioactive than is typical and suffered skin burns on their feet. The Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency, NISA, said that happened at the turbine building for the Unit 3 nuclear reactor, and the Kyoto News Agency on Friday reported that highly radioactive water was also found in the turbine buildings at Units 1 and 2. The Unit 3 reactor is the only one at the plant to use plutonium, which is more toxic than the uranium used in the other 5 reactors. The government called for an investigation into why such high levels of radiation had suddenly appeared, risking their lives. The Prime Minister apologized to farmers and business owners for the toll the radiation has had on their livelihoods. Several countries have halted some food imports from areas near the plant after milk and produce were found to contain elevated levels of radiation. The Prime Minister also thanked utility workers, firefighters, and military personnel for risking their lives to cool the overheated faculty. Officials have previously said that small explosions at the reactor could have damaged it, but the high seepage of radiation could imply much worse damage than previously believed. Plant operator Tokyo Electric Power Company said the temperature and pressure inside the core, which holds the fuel rods, remained stable and was far lower than what would further melt the core. A rupture in the Unit 3 reactor would mean a serious reversal following days of slow progress in containing radiation leaks. A breach could mean a leak has been seeping for days, likely since the hydrogen explosion at Unit 3 on March 14th. It's not clear if any of the contaminated water has run into the ground. Radiation readings for the air were not yet available for Friday, but detections in recent days have shown no significant spike. 2 of the other reactors are now seen as safe, but the other 4 are volatile, occasionally emitting steam and smoke. But work is advancing to restart water pumps to cool their fuel rods. Authorities have been using seawater to cool the reactors, but that is not ideal as it is corrosive and leaves salt deposits that can constrict the amount of water that can cool the rods. The Tokyo Electric Power Company, or TEPCO, said it started injecting fresh water into the pressure vessels of Unit 1 and 3 reactors and expected to start injecting fresh water into Unit 2 soon. The United States has offered to help with 2 barges with 525,000 gallons of fresh water. More than 700 engineers have been working in shifts around the clock to stabilize the 6 reactor complex. The confusion was yet another setback to the urgent task of gaining control of the plant 140 miles northeast of Tokyo, 2 weeks after a magnitude 9.0 quake triggered a tsunami that engulfed the faculty and knocked out its crucial cooling system and backup systems. The plant has been releasing radiation, with elevated levels turning up in raw milk, seawater, and 11 kinds of vegetables, including broccoli, cauliflower, and turnips. Tap water in several areas of Japan, including Tokyo, also tested with radiation levels considered unsafe for infants, who are particularly vulnerable to cancer-causing radioactive iodine, officials said. The scare caused a run on bottled water in the capital and prompted city officials to distribute bottled water to families with babies. In the latest contamination reports, radioactive cesium, 1.8 times higher than the standard level, was found in a leafy vegetable grown at a Tokyo research faculty. Experts say radiation leaking from the plant is still mainly below levels of exposure from flights or dental and medical x-rays. Meantime, officials are also grappling with a humanitarian crisis in the Northeast, where hundreds of thousands of survivors remain camped out in schools and civic buildings 2 weeks after the tsunami swallowed up large areas of the coast. Some 660,000 households do not have water, and more than 209,000 do not have electricity. The estimated $300 billion plus damage from the quake and tsunami makes this the world's costliest natural disaster, dwarfing Japan's 1995 Kobe earthquake and Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans in 2005. And yes, again, this was a great earthquake. Japan's chief cabinet secretary said 120,000 people living near Fukushima should consider leaving, although he insisted it was because getting supplies to the region was difficult, and maintained that it was not an evacuation order so far. Again, this is turning into a nuclear nightmare and a long-term rolling disaster. This is another sign of the time, the end times, transition days, which is a continuing day-by-day process of extraordinary events and changes. Matthew chapter 24, verse 19. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give nurse in those days. 20. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. 21. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. 22. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. Revelation chapter 8, verse 8. And the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain, burning with fire, was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became as blood. 9. And the third part of the creatures which are in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. 10. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. 11. And the name of the star is called Wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many humans died of the waters, because they were made bitter. 12. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. 13. And I beheld, and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the 3 angels, which are yet to sound. Revelation chapter 16, verse 4. And the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of waters, and they became as blood. 5. And I heard the angel of the waters say, Thou art righteous, O Lord, which are and was, and shall be, because thou hast judged thus. 6. For they have shed the blood of saints and prophets, and thou hast given them blood to drink, for they are worthy. 7. And I heard another out of the altar say, Even so, Lord God Almighty, true and righteous are thy judgments. 8. And the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and power was given unto him to scorch humans with fire. 9. And humans were scorched with great heat, and blasphemed the name of God, which has power over these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. 10. And the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. 11. And blasphemed the God of heaven, because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. 12. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the leaders of the east might be prepared. The time is come for all these things to happen, for all prophecy to be fulfilled, and there are many kinds of signs happening all around the world. Everything is numbered, and everything is connected.